welcome to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloincgamers.com. This is the second half of a longer podcast. You heard part one in show number 103, but you don't need to listen to that one first or refresh your memory because these are totally different topics. There's no overlap. On this show, we talk about recent Diablo III dev interviews and what we've learned about the game and about Blizzard's evolving Diablo III community relations. And Xanth says nice things about my interviewing style, which you can hear I am quite uncomfortable listening to because I don't take praise well. We also talk a lot about shared Paragon levels, kind of brainstorming how they could or should work and the pros and cons, and you can even hear my delight in real time when I first thought to call them Sharagon levels. We also talk a lot about how Magic Find works and what we like or dislike about it in the current system, getting it from gear and or Paragon levels. And Xanth repeats his Twitter offer to make a snuff film starring his very own Barbarian. And you can see more about what's in this show in the details below. It runs about 45 minutes, and enjoy. The big thing last week was the Diablo III developers submitted themselves to a number of fan site interviews. I was lucky enough to conduct one of those myself, and we saw other ones on a couple of other websites, and then there were some streamers that did ones. And obviously we've had a rush of these since that fan site summit a few weeks ago.
Right.
And since neither of you guys did an interview, but you consumed them, I'm assuming, what did you think? Did you learn new things? Did you enjoy the greater communication with the developers? What do you think, Xanth?
I think one of the things that really struck me, and I think it resonated in the D3 community, and I don't want to stroke your ego, Flux, because I feel like
No, go ahead.
I feel like you're probably bloated enough in that department. But it was very apparent that you were willing to ask questions, to press things, and to get different responses than kind of the stock. We're working on it, or we can't talk about it, and instead of just pursuing the stuff in the future, you were talking more about stuff in game now, or the thoughts behind things. And I don't know, maybe I seem biased, but I enjoyed the in gamers one probably the most because I felt like I learned something in the process, as opposed to, and I don't want to bag on any other site or anything like that, but I didn't get that from anything else. I felt. I felt like the ones that we had were just much better. I've read all the other ones, and were there other little bits of information here and there from different ones, of course. But I felt like the one that was giving me the most information was ours.
Your general thoughts, Aahz, if we're going to a little more specifics on anything?
Yeah, I thought you did a really good job, and
I mean, not even just on mine, I'm just in general, or I don't want to make this too much. I only have one popsicle, and you can't both suck it at once, but...
Oh my God.
but one of the things,
I mean, just in general, I mean, a lot of people were commenting that they thought, well, I mean, go ahead, and I'll change the topic.
one of the things that struck me in your guys' podcast, and I know it frustrated people on the threads, is I think they seem very thoughtful about and very thorough about what kind of changes that they want to make to the game. And they get crap for that oh, they can't do anything without running it through 3 committees and such. But that wasn't the way I took it. I thought that they really care. They're really trying to do the right thing for the most number of gamers. And I think there are some tensions probably between the quote unquote hardcore gamers, not the mode, but people who play it a lot, versus no, we want to make a game that appeals to the masses. And for the ones that do play it a lot, I think they get frustrated with that. The game developers have to serve that community more so than some of the ones that play a lot.
If you guys recall, before release, we got like Bashiok had one time he mentioned that like his mom tried to play and died to a zombie or something. And I'm pretty sure Wyatt Chang said his grandmother had tried to play it at one point and died to something that was confusing him. And I almost blurted that out during the interview. He meant, he ducked some question about something or other. I'm like, so did your grandmother die to this or what? But I thought that would have been taken the wrong way, perhaps. But that's my thought as you mentioned this, Aahz mentioned that there are different communities of gamers and how hardcore someone is depends on what they want or otherwise. But, I mean, as we see in Diablo III and most other games past release, pretty much every patch addresses the end game, addresses the 1% of players who are really, really devoted to it. Because, of course, those players, which includes us, obviously, the 3 of us, are the ones who make the noise and make, forum posts and podcasts and other such things. But, I mean, one of the things I was going to ask is that people said in comments that they really liked that the developers were being more communicative and actually talking to the fans. And a couple of people were nice enough to say they thought that my interview did more of that, really got them to go in a give and take instead of just giving them softball questions. But, I mean, obviously, we didn't hear a damn word from Jay Wilson and others for, 6 months at a time sometimes.
Right.
And it's, I mean, it's even if you don't like the questions that they're answering now or the way they're answering them, at least they're talking, right? At least we're getting some more insight into the process.
Right.
That's
I
definitely good that they're discussing it. There was, some times that I was a little disappointed where, I thought you'd asked a good question and they went off onto, well, I want to answer another question. I was like, that's nice, but can you
Well, as
do
I
more to
told Wyatt,
answer this question that he
yeah,
asked?
yeah, like I said to Wyatt, that is your skill set.
Yes.
And then he laughed and went ahead and did it. So,
right.
Well, you have to say yes. I mean, he wants to talk about the game, and you want to get as much information as possible. So,
well, I don't have to, but I thought he was going into a digression that was an interesting topic. I mean, he wasn't just, filibustering,
right.
right?
Right. I think it's a good step, really, and I think you brought up Jay Wilson and obviously the lack of communication. I think being able to come to the fan sites and to open the lines of communication more is a good thing. You talked frequently about your time with D2 and being able to pick their brains a lot and to talk with them a lot, and I think that's the step in the right direction to be able to open up, Blizzard and to open up the Diablo community to what's going on. Obviously Blizzard is a bigger company now than what they were, 10, 15 years ago. So there's more hoops to jump through, but to be able to, start doing that more and to you have a large base of people playing this game that love this game and to say, hey, we recognize you and we're going to talk to you about it and we can't tell you everything and you know how that is, but we're going to tell you more than nothing. We're going to tell you more than soon, and we're going to explain what's going on. And it's always better than nothing. And there's always going to be a complaint about a question that wasn't asked or answered, but we're getting more than what we've seen before. And I think that's a great step. And then obviously when you have somebody who is a good interviewer, able to ask those questions and kind of take in, the different things in the community that are happening and the thoughts about it, that's a good sign. Like if I was the one doing the interview, I don't think I would have been able to do as good of a job. And again, not stroking your ego any more than what it needs to be, but I think that's what we saw in some of those other interviews is the people, maybe they were starstruck, maybe they were just passive, and didn't want to probe them like what kind of a journalist would do. I think that was the thing that struck a chord with me, is it felt very very much like a journalist, asking hard questions and asking follow-up questions to kind of get more information than just, hey, how are you guys doing today? What would you like to talk about?
Well, thanks, but to be honest, your last interview with Blizzard, they give you a job offer out of it. So that's a little more. I didn't actually get a job offer out of this. So you've got one up on me there. Speaking of interview techniques and quality.
Yeah, but that's a little different though, because they were asking me questions, not me asking them
Oh, I see.
necessarily.
Well, I hired Wyatt, so it works out evenly.
Yeah, there you go.
On the formatting, I mean, most people did kind of agree with what you've said, that they said they liked that I was more interactive. And, a lot of that is because it wasn't. If this interview took place on December 1st, it would have been a very different interview. I mean, I hope I do have an interview with them on December 1st, I mean, of this year.
Right,
And in theory, we've just heard, we've got a whole new expansion pack coming out, just revealed, and we're all excited for information. That would be much more of a standard Q&A,
right,
because there'd be tons of information that we wanted to get details about that we don't have yet.
right,
That's not the case today. Today it's a little bit about the whole Loot 2.0 thing, but I mean I asked a bunch of questions on that, and you guys heard the results. It's like, well, we're thinking about this, and well, we're thinking about that, and there's no point in asking 20 specific questions about details. Are you going to put a cap on critical hit damage or something? Like, well, we're thinking about, we don't like hard cap. They just you can almost answer the question yourself, right?
right.
The more
So I think that what's interesting in this case is to get more of a conversation and to get more of a philosophical debate, and to obviously I took the opportunity to advocate some of my personal wishes, all of which were shot down, I might note. But I think it's a much more interesting conversation than just having a straight Q&A when there's not any new information. And or as we saw in some of those streamer ones we heard, especially the anniversary day streamer guy, where Wyatt just kind of talked about whatever for 3 hours and didn't really get any questions.
Right.
And I was doing a transcript of that. I think I tore out most of my hair during the transcript. I was like, ask a follow-up. There's so many follow-ups. God.
Well,
But anyway, you were going to say something, Oz?
I was just going to say the more important part about the December 1st interview is the A. They would have multiple things that they could talk about. Whereas now, I'm sure there are things that they want to say that they just can't because they're close in development and they don't want to do a reveal before the big reveal. So
I think the thing that really I really liked was it was a conversation about the game, like a real conversation, as opposed to like you had kind of noted before, like a stock Q&A. And I think that has the ability to kind of transcend and kind of get past that PR mumble jumbo and to feel real. And you can actually understand the people behind the game better that way. You can understand what they like. You can understand what makes them tick or what goes into making these kind of decisions. And I think that was able to come across. And that does a lot of good for the company too, because it humanizes them. They're not just these robots behind a PR schlub kind of thing. They're there to talk about their passion, and they're able to exude it and not feel like they're into cookie cutter responses. And I think that especially with a new game director is nice to be able to open up and be able to show the fans what's behind the veil with them and what they're thinking about.
Yeah, I should just for a little background information. I mean, there were no questions that I asked that they didn't answer. Nothing was edited out. I mean, a few ums and uhs were edited out, but none of the content was edited out. And the only PR person was Lyleria, and you heard her laughing in the background a few times. She was in the room. They were in a conference room on like one of those speakers on the table, those big triangular shaped ones you always see with a phone.
Hmm.
Yep.
And I was on Skype just like I am right here. So there were no limits placed. They never said don't ask about X. You can't ask questions about this. I could have asked any question about anything in the world that I wanted to, and in fact I did, or at least I tried to. And they never said, we can't answer that and edit out of the show entirely. Of course, if they had, I wouldn't be telling you this now anyway. So you can think it's part of a grand conspiracy, but the fact that it was an hour-long interview and it went 61 minutes makes it pretty clear there wasn't a lot of editing out of it.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was a good interview, and they said that they'll be doing more of them, and I think that would be fun. And one of the things that I really missed pregame, as our 7 years, 12 years of waiting for Diablo 3, we would get interviews all the time from, Gamescom or BlizzCon or whatever with Jay Wilson or someone, and it was always just, what's in the new Demon Hunter, what kind of skills, are we going to see the Necromancer again? It was always just this complete Q&A, either by like an overmatched fanboy or a disinterested general media type. There was very
Hmm.
little in between, it seemed like. And there was almost never. I thought for years, well, not years, but I mean, starting after the launch, it'd be really great just to talk to Jay Wilson for an hour about whatever. Just what's your favorite class? How do you like playing it? What do you think is changing over time? Not just grilling him about details of the new reveal. And that's kind of what I did in this interview a little bit, where we didn't have a ton of new information, so it was fun to just talk about new stuff. And the irony is that on May 15th or May 14th or May 13th of last year, before the launch, they released a whole bunch of interviews, and several of them were of that kind. It was like, here's an hour of Jay Wilson just talking about the development of Diablo 3 and how he's looking forward to the game launching. And it gave you much more sense of the guy's personality, of his interests, of where he's coming from. And of course, nobody listened to any of those because they came out the day the damn game launched.
Right.
But I wish they'd done more of those since then, but they had this huge publicity burst right before the launch, and then nothing for months and months.
Right.
And now we're getting a little bit of a publicity burst, even though, as I said in the Fansite Summit article, this is kind of out of necessity because we're not getting any content until whenever after November.
Yeah.
So they've got to do something to tide us over. So this is kind of what they're doing to tide us over and distract us with the shiny, and apparently it's working.
Well, and I think the biggest hope is that it's something that persists even after there's content. Something that these lines of communication are open and they stay open, not because they need them to be, but because they want them to be. And I think it makes for a better game, and it makes for a better community. Because that's the big thing about Diablo, is its community is interesting. It's both passionate and vitriolic. And if you can tap into that passion and focus on that, and then you'll have a better running game. You'll have people who care more about it, but maybe not channeling all their time into that anger. I mean, you're still going to get some of it. It is the internet. But what does that stem from? We look at when what 5 years ago when it was announced, and then people started getting antsy, and then they started getting angry, and then they didn't get the attention that they wanted. So if those lines of communication are open more, then maybe some of that starts to stem off a bit, and you can focus on the good of what the game has.
That does seem to be the case and the plan, and Lyleria was not running the PR for Diablo 3 until just a few months ago, until earlier, no, late last year. They kind of had a changing of the guard, and they're going in a very new direction. And I'm not just kissing ass or whatever, but they're trying different things. They're doing a lot more interaction, and we're having much more communication with developers, not just myself, but I mean lots of other fan sites. We see Wyatt on Reddit all the time now, and they're making forum posts. So obviously they're making new efforts. And whether that's born of desperation or a lack of content for the next 4 months or a whole new agenda or both. And as you say, we hope that this will continue even after the new content arrives.
Right.
What do you think, Oz?
I mean, without knowing what their internal discussions are, it's clear that they've taken a new direction. I'm sitting here thinking, does it translate into sales? I mean, like, I love the information and or just even hearing them talk about it and talk about what they're working on and some of the things that they've gone through as we've discussed. But I'm going to buy the expansion. So how many people is it going to pull in that, wouldn't have or were on the fence? I'm not sure. I just know that as a player, I enjoy it. It certainly, um, I'm thankful for the outreach that they've done, and it's good to hear the actual developers talk about some of the things that they're working on.
Okay, one of the things they mentioned in the interviews, I think I mentioned on a streamer some time ago, and they heard it again in one of the interviews just last week, is they're thinking about doing some kind of a shared Paragon levels, where it's like Paragon levels go to your whole account. And they have not given details on this, but they said basically the problem is that people have mains now, and you never want to play another character because you're giving up all that MF and GF bonus. And that's certainly true for me, at least. I've looked at playing. You think about playing one of your level 5 Demon Hunter there, Xanth, and you're like, okay, this character has 17% Magic Find, and
Right.
my Witch Doctor has 440% Magic Find and MP4.
Right.
And you're not going to find a damn thing until you're like level 50 with this new character anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can see definite pros and cons on the whole concept of shared Paragon levels. In theory, it's only the Magic Find and the Gold Find that's shared. You're not getting, obviously you get a bonus with every level you gain, a stat bonus,
Right.
3 to your main stat and 2 vit. So you're not going to tick to Paragon 1 and suddenly you've got, 240 dexterity bonus or something, right? It's just going to be the Magic Find and the Gold Find. But I mean, what do you guys think about that? Would you be more inclined to play different characters? I mean, in theory, what it would do is you wouldn't like. You remember for a while before launch, they had Magic Find was shared within parties,
Right.
and people thought that was a horrible idea. So if one guy had 300% and one guy had 10%, you'd have 310% divided by 2, that kind of thing, which would be 144, I believe. We're all math experts here. Anyway, yeah, I know it's not 144, but that was the theory that people hated that idea. So I think if you had shared Paragon, it wouldn't really be shared Paragon. It would be your account has a Paragon level,
Right.
and then all of the characters you play get that Paragon level. It wouldn't like divide. If you have an 80 monk and a 10 barbarian, you don't get 45 and a half or something, right?
Right.
So would that make you play more characters? Would that diversify? Would you have less of a main character and you just be playing? Would you have 5 level 30s instead of 1 level 80? I mean, what do you think? How would that change your behavior, Xanth?
Well, I guess I wonder too with like hardcore. Do I have to have a level 100 sitting there alive, or is it once it's done, it's done? I don't have to worry about keeping my character alive. I think the Paragon system, it was a system that was born out of necessity, but it's also created a huge monster for whatever they're going to do next. It was one of the conversations I had at Blizzard, just kind of chatting before the interview, was like, where do they go with this? What happens with a Paragon system? Because what you kind of did was you gave more content to grind, but by placing the level cap at 60, then it was just grinding at 60 for these random levels for additional Magic Find. What I would love is kind of a return, to the D2 system where the higher levels were the ones that took a long time, but then, trickling down to the other levels that were added in, there was more of a desire to just get good items at lower levels, and not necessarily be in this rush for the last one. Like I don't feel necessarily a rush to get Paragon 100 right now, but I feel useless at level 33, because I want to be 60 so I can start getting Paragon levels. That was one of the best things about D2 is, running around and you get a good item at level 40 that you can use until like level 70. And with the Paragon system, you don't necessarily have that. You just have getting to 60 and then grinding. So I'm really curious as to what they're going to do with it. I mean, I think the sharing might help, maybe, and then they can shift away to something different. but I don't know. The big thing too with the whole Paragon system, and one of the things I liked about D2 was, if you were equipping a lot of Magic Find, especially in hardcore, you were doing it and taking a risk. You knew that this could get you better items, but you lacked survivability, and it could lead to your downfall. Whereas now, with just especially if this system were to go into place, you're not making a sacrifice for Magic Find. You're not sacrificing anything to kind of get better items, and you can just kind of scrape around and be fine. And I don't know. I don't. Is that a better system than what we have currently? It's hard to say.
Okay, I had this whole rant about Magic Find and Paragon levels and stuff. I haven't been doing. I've been saving for like 2 months, and we may have to get into it here. But my question for you, Oz, is a slight redirect of what Xanth just said. So imagine the system today is shared Paragon levels for your account, and whatever leveling you do goes toward your Paragon level on your account. And assuming it's a 1-to-1 thing, maybe they're going to change it. It'll be half to one. So you have to get 200 Paragon levels in characters to equal 100 Paragon levels in your account or whatever. I assume what it would be is, but how do they even display this? So each individual character would be gaining Paragon levels at the current pace, because when you gain a Paragon level, you get more stat bonuses. But at the same time, you'd have a separate bar that's your total account Paragon level, because obviously if your account is going from 60 to 61, and your character is going from 3 to 4, that's a very different sized bar, right? So I'm confusing this question with details already. But anyway, assuming, Sir Aahz, that there was a Paragon to your account right now, and every time you gained a Paragon level, your MF for all your characters in the Paragon levels increased, and you're just starting off in hardcore. I mean, when I started off in hardcore, and probably the same thing for Xanth, you really wanted to get one character to a high level because that was the only way you could ever start finding any good gear. But if they had an account Paragon system, would you still feel like, is your goal right now to get your Barbarian to level 60 so you can finally start to find some really good stuff? Paragon 60, I mean. And if that's not the case, yes or no on that question. But if the account was the Paragon, would you be like, oh, I don't need to spend all my time trying to get my barb up. I can just play a monk instead, or I can play a demon hunter instead, because that'll still be raising my total magic find bonus as I do it.
I don't think it would change right now. I mean, the main reason that I'm trying to stick with the barb for a while is more to get some twink stuff. Get a Hellfire ring or 2 Hellfire rings and get some better gems so that I can go through and get the demon hunter that's 35 up to 60. I mean, really in the short term, all I have is I want to get all the, all 5 classes up to 60 in hardcore. What am I going to play after that? I'm not really sure long term. But yeah, so I'm not sure that I have a Paragon of 60 in mind per se. But yeah, I did do some of those, leeching games where I was trying to get experience and get Paragon and to boost the Magic Find and Gold Find. But mostly, gems, Tomes of Secrets. Um, I don't know. I'm really not sure if I would play any differently. It is kind of an interesting dichotomy though, because let's say you build up a 60 in hardcore and then Paragon 60 in hardcore, and then that character's dead. Does all that go down to your level 30 Demon Hunter, the Gold Find and Magic Find as you work your way up, or does it just kick
Well,
in?
not currently.
Yeah, right. Would it just kick in when you get to Paragon to Inferno and hit your level 60? I don't know. But I don't think, at least at this point, as I first build things up in hardcore, that it would change how I would play or which characters I would play.
Well, for me, when my first monk died at 61 Paragon, I had no other characters above like level 20. And so I was at max magic find and just really trying to rack up some good profits. And I'd gone up to 200 million gold pretty quickly from like 50 million just in a few levels because I was finding really good stuff. And then once he died, it was like, well, shit, I'm back to absolute ground zero. I mean, I obviously had some gear and some gold, but and then it took my new monk until level 50 to start really finding good stuff again. So it would be very different if I could have just had a new character, the first character to Paragon 60. As soon as I get to, as soon as I get to level 60, if I'm thinking as soon as I ding here, I'm going to get 187% magic find bonus or something. That would really change the way I played it. I would play a lot more alts right now if that was the way the system was. I'm not really in favor of the system, I don't think, actually, that change. I kind of like having what your character does matter and giving you a bonus to that character, not just every character you own forever. But it would definitely change how I play right now, where I really feel like I have to be kind of careful with my monk to some degree, because he's, I think, 74 now, Paragon, and is a fantastic item finder. and I could get a little more experience going up a couple of more MPs and probably not die. But if that increases the odds of dying by 5%, and this character is my entire economic basis right now, I mean, you don't want to risk your breadwinner, right? I mean, obviously Xanth's doing this happily because he's just that much more man than me. But
Pretty much.
it's at some point, I mean, when I'm playing my new Demon Hunter, it's totally just for like a novelty for the hell of it. Like you said earlier, it's a palate cleanser. It's like a sorbet course before the second meal. But if because you're not going to get a damn thing with this new character. I mean, maybe you'll get lucky and find something fantastic, right? I mean, it can always happen. You can have zero magic find and find it at 6% mempo and retire on the proceeds.
Right.
But generally speaking, I know I'm not going to find anything of any use or very, very little with a new character before like with Paragon 30. And if I knew that the second they hit Paragons at all, they were going to be at 200% magic find or 300%, then maybe I'm like thinking a whole different way and playing more alts. And maybe that's the goal with the developers kind of making this change or this hypothetical change anyway. Would that change your behavior, Xanth? Would you be playing more of your Barbarian or whatever?
No, I won't. I won't play my Barbarian. And actually,
You're trying to kill your
I
Barbarian.
am. I just put out a tweet on the Ink Gamers Twitter. But if we reach 5,000 followers, and you can follow us at Diablo Ink Gamers, I will stream or videotape my Barbarian dying, and Twitter followers can chime in on how they want me to die. Naked fighting Diablo in Whimsyshire, however you want it. But shameless plug there for our Twitter. But
Which you have recently begun contributing to, which is why you're doing this.
yeah, exactly.
So it's much more active than it was in the past. And Xanth is doing. Is this a betrayal of the entire instinct of a hardcore gamer by this? And should you be exiled for this?
Well, the thing is, I put the time in making the character. I don't.
What level is this Barbarian, by the way?
I think he's Paragon like 2 or 3. Um, so if people just want a nice shameless death, and they get to play a factor in doing it, I'm all for it. I'll put in the time and I'll make another Barbarian. I don't care. If we reach 10,000 followers, I'll kill my witch doctor, because I that would be a huge jump. But no, I don't think it's that shameless. But in terms of like shifting up my play style, I don't know. I think I'm with you on that, Flux. That like I like that my characters matter in what they're doing, and like my witch doctor has earned all that magic find by putting himself on the line, and my demon hunter hasn't yet. Would it get me to play my other classes? Probably, because you're right in that spectrum, but I don't know. Should everything be given to you up front right away because you've done it once before? It kind of goes back into that whole re-rolling system. We don't have to choose skills or anything like that anymore, or re-roll a character because we can just do it on the fly. Should that happen with every system? I don't have to worry about grinding out Paragon levels anymore because I did it once. Like I said, I think the Paragon system is a system born of necessity, but it does create future problems. It creates big problems down the road, and I'm really curious as to what they're going to do with it. I really do want to know like what ideas they have in place. And I think that'll be one of the more interesting parts of the expansion outside of new class and stuff like that is, okay, well, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the way it is now. I hadn't really thought about it much until your email, about one of the potential topics. But I did a lot of thinking about it today, and it does give you some connection, I think, to that character. We've talked about how in Diablo 2 you had a connection to this smite paladin that you built up, and then you built up a skeleton necromancer, and those characters all had their own kind of growth and experiences and such. And you get that a little bit as a kind of a kludge add-on with the Paragon, but you do get it. I mean, the P92 Witch Doctor has gone through and done all that grinding and killed all those monsters and ID'd a whole bunch of rares and so I feel like, okay, that Paragon sort of was earned by that Witch Doctor character, and the other ones, they haven't done all that yet. I know I'm getting to real like third party stuff here, speaking in
You
third
sound like a
person.
developer.
Yeah, I'm speaking in third person about my own avatars here, but I do think it it's okay the way it is now. I'm sure it could be improved, but I think I'd be slightly against a Paragon at the account level.
Even though you would benefit from it more than Xanth or myself.
Right.
Well, you know,
Well,
yes, maybe from that gold and magic find, but maybe not from the overall play experience. It's hard to
well,
say.
I also kind of think of it, like looking outside of the hardcore spectrum, look at the softcore spectrum, and a lot of people already have their Paragon 100s. Does that shift it too much for them? I mean, are they necessarily going to go out and play a different class if they've already got one that's 100 and they've been playing with it for so long? Would that be enough of a push for them?
Well, I'm looking at the actual answer, which is by Travis Day to this question, and just to paraphrase, to semi-quote him, the Paragon system is spectacular for what it was trying to accomplish. Random can be a cruel mistress, and the Paragon system's primary intent was to allow you to feel like you're progressing, even if you're not getting lucky with your item drops, which it does. I will admit that.
Yep.
We want to take that concept and expand upon it even more. We've talked about taking Paragon and decoupling it from your character specifically and making it something that is more account overall. So that anytime you invest in the game is rewarded, and if you don't feel like we're taking anything away from you, you want to try new characters out or different play styles within the game. Also, maybe potentially some sort of customization within the Paragon system, sort of in the vein of a throwback to a Diablo II stat location. We've looked at things like that. We definitely have plans to flesh it out more in time. We don't need to design it from the ground up for what it does. So what they're saying with Paragons is that, what we kind of are just, if we said ourselves, is that if you had it for your whole account, the Magic Find, Gold Find bonuses, you would feel more free to play different characters and not just play your main. But at the same time, it's nice having a sense that my main has earned this, and it's not just any new character can immediately step in and get all these same bonuses, even though they don't have as good of a gear or a kill speed or whatever, which makes obviously factors in as well. But this reminds me of the whole thing in just the whole system of Magic Find getting Magic Find just from leveling, just from grinding. And I don't object to that so much in hardcore because you can die and it all goes away, as I found out far too many times thus far. But especially in softcore, I mean, I imagine your average softcore MP5 game is like what you were complaining about earlier, Xanth. It's three guys with 8K DPS just lurching around with Magic Find on, trying to leech off to whoever the one person is killing.
Right.
Because who cares if you die? Who cares? There's no risk to it. You can when you explain yourself in the field of misery, you don't die forever in the process.
Right.
When Xanth distracts you with his witty banter, and the flowers sneak up on you and turn you green. So I'm not a huge fan of the whole system of just getting, grinding equals finding the best items in the game. I like when you have to actually make sacrifices and use specific gear, and in theory, you're making trade-offs in your DPS and your EHP in order to get more Magic Find. However, at the same time, in Diablo 2, I hardly ever played characters who didn't have good Magic Find. It just seemed so pointless.
Right.
I had really well equipped, like, paladins or a fury, a werewolf druid, and they were kind of fun, and I could grind along and kill stuff, and you're using really good like DPS gear, survival gear, and there's almost no danger because the game wasn't as hard as Diablo 3, although that's kind of changed over time. But then, at the same time, I've got my Boazon with 600 Magic Find, and I've got my item find Barbarian with 650% and item 45% item monster Hork. What the hell was it called? Find item. So every time you kill a champion, you've got a 50% chance of it dropping another item. I love that skill, by the way. I so wish we had that in Diablo 3. But so I can see both sides of the issue. Whereas I very seldom played characters who were really strong if they weren't going to find any good gear.
Right.
And Paragon fixes that. But at the same time, Paragon takes away from the rewards you get with a specific character, and it totally takes away the rewards from sacrificing for Magic Find. So you can't please all the people all the time, including myself.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And, I think back to my D2 days, and yeah, you could equip better gear and be just fine and just kill monsters, and you wouldn't find as much, or you could load up with Magic Find and do Mephisto runs consistently. And 90% of the time, I was doing that. I was loading up on Magic Find and running Mephisto. So yeah, I think there is that aspect that if you do have to gear for it, that's all you're doing, as opposed to it being earned. But then it's kind of a catch-22.
You gonna jump in there, Aahz?
I would just say that I think you could sort of mitigate. You could, if you left Magic Find on gear, you could have more, like if you had more Uber type events and rewards, so that you had to at least have some battles where I have to have a really high DPS and survivability to complete these battles to get certain items that I can't get, normally from running the game. Or maybe even you could, maybe you could still have a shot at getting in his pants or whatever. Um,
Well, she's pretty cute, so that's a good thing.
but maybe that
You're a
would be
married man, by the way.
maybe that would be a way to give you a reason to find all these great items and say, all right, that one doesn't have magic find on it, so that's going to go to my tank monk, that's going to lock down Siegebreaker while the rest of the group goes and kills Soldier Cool on MP10, or whatever else that they can come up with. But it doesn't sound like they're moving in that direction based on that answer from Mr. Day.
Mr. Day. Okay, I have 2 points here. Okay, point one, it is now called the Sharagon system. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Much like free specs, I love these portmanteaus. And secondly, what if the sharing and the character both get separate bonuses? So it's just I thought of this in the last 2 minutes here. It's obviously not perfectly aligned yet, but what if your account Paragon gets 2% Magic Find Gold Find, and each level your character gets 2% Magic Find Gold Find? So when your account Paragon, if account Paragon takes longer, say it takes twice as long to get an account Paragon as an individual character Paragon, however that scales up over time.
Right.
But say eventually your account has got level 50 Paragon. That means any character you start immediately has 100% MF Gold Find, each. But every level you gain with them, you get 2% more. So when they get to level 50, then you've got 300% total. So you can get a bigger than 300% total, but that way each level matters, and each new character isn't starting off with 0 gold find the way it is now, and it feels like there's no point in playing an alt.
And
Yes or no?
well, and then you could add in the stat allocation that Travis was talking about as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wouldn't have that many qualms with it. Um, I, Flux, did you sign up to be a developer at this point?
Well, I had my job offer, my job interview last week, and as you saw, I didn't get hired, unlike some people. So how does that system sound like something like that to you, Oz, where you get a bonus to the characters and also to the account? Or would that still make you just want to play one character to get 400% magic find?
No, I think that would be good. I mean, I'll admit I probably fell into the trap of, okay, they put the Paragon 100 mountain out there, so I felt like, all right, I'm going to climb that because I, did the level 50 in Diablo and I did the level 99 in Diablo 2. All right, now you got a Paragon 100. I have to go get that at least.
Well, you admitted it. You said your Witch Doctor's 92, right?
Yeah,
In softcore.
that's correct. Yeah, so at least.
Well, so there you go.
So at least for one character, I'm going to try to get that. Um, but it would give. I play my alts from time to time anyway, and that mostly has to do with if I was playing games with friends. If my friends were in his Witch Doctor, I'm not going to bring on a Witch Doctor in the game. I'll grab my Demon Hunter or something. So I don't need a whole lot of encouragement to play alts, but it would make it a little bit easier. I mean, there are times when I say, "Gosh, I really should be playing my Witch Doctor, not my Wizard." But sometimes I just feel like I have to melt stuff, so I have to grab the Wizard.
Yeah, but if it's rewarding. I mean, the whole time I was playing with Demon Hunter the last few days, I mean, it was kind of fun, and I'm thinking I'll get to level 60 and I can try some different builds, and I enjoyed this class. I haven't played it in a long time. But at the same time, there's this palpable sense of, I've played 8 hours of this in the last 3 to 4 days. How much could I have gotten with my monk? He'd be 2 levels higher in Paragons now, and I could have found, 20 more legendaries, and you're very aware of what you're giving up in the process of playing a character that doesn't have, it's got 400% less magic find.
You're absolutely right. That dynamic certainly exists. It is in the back of your mind. I mean, there's no question about that.
And so I guess I'm talking myself into Sharagon here. It's terrible. I was against it in theory, and now that I've thought about it, it's like, well, it would increase alts, and as long as it's not, I don't want there to get to be some point where you get to Paragon 1 and you're exactly as good as your Paragon 100 in terms of magic find with no gear. That just seems really cheesy.
Right.
I mean, I want there to be some. Obviously, you don't have the the stat bonuses for levels is a factor, but I don't want to just have someone just you can turbo your friend to Paragon 100 and to Paragon 1 in 3 hours or something, and that character shouldn't immediately be as strong as someone else's 350-hour Barbarian in terms of magic finding. So I don't want it to be full sharing, but as long I wouldn't mind, I guess, some overall benefit and some sense of account progression.
Yeah, and like you said, to give you some kind of reward for putting in the time. I mean, that is certainly nice to have, to know that, okay, I've put hours and hours into this. I am getting a tangible benefit.
Okay, one quick thought. Just last topic. Redundant crafting plans. Obviously, most of us have found every crafting plan, except for the legendary ones anyway, and 1,000 times. And they have a pretty good sale value in hardcore. You can still get 70, 80, 100K for some of them. But other ones are worth nothing. What if a redundant crafting plan, you could turn that in instead of selling it on the auction house, you could get a free craft of that item
Hmm.
for that plan.
I think that'd be a good idea. Heck, I'd even do that for some of the normal ones, you know. Let me
Yeah, I mean, so
turn in
yeah, I
this
mean, yeah, I think that's a better idea. I don't think it works for the jeweler. You can't get a marquee emerald for free, but
right.
Right.
The
but if
blacksmith
you get
though.
but if you found whatever, resplendent pants of the very large penis or something, and with six random sockets, of course, six random mods, and you can just turn that in and get a free one instead of selling it or throwing it away. I think that'd be kind of fun. I saw that in a forum post somewhere. I wish I credit the author. I don't remember who said it, but I thought it was kind of a fun idea.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I mean, there are still a whole bunch of plans out there that, like, even in the most ideal situation, wouldn't give you anything that was worth it. But, you think of the new crafting plans, that would be kind of nice. And
Well, the ideal situation in this case would be with no auction house, in which case they would be useful. So
right,
it's only the auction house that makes them useless in many cases.
right.
But yeah. But anyway,
Yeah, I kind of like that.
yeah, I like the idea. So why I can throw that in there next week, no problem. Slap that into a patch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you could just
easily.
hotfix that.
I mean,
Well, that's a clever idea.
that's usually how I know a game is done. I'll go into a game and I'll see a bunch of crafting plans laying on the ground that people picked up and just dropped because they don't need them anymore.
They can't bother selling that 8K marquee topaz plan.
Right, exactly.
How many people keep buying those? I'm really amazed the market. I mean, those things are worth like a penny in softcore. I mean, months ago. I mean, right after 107, they were worth a penny. And in hardcore, I think I sold a Vitality shoulders yesterday for like 210K. I was like, wow, really? I was
Nice.
amazed. And they just keep having value. I mean, I guess enough new people are getting in that have and getting into hardcore. I mean, you must have bought. Have you bought any plans, Oz, or are you just finding them?
I have not bought any. I'm still trying to just find it myself. Like I said, that's kind of why I added Sadea to that key run. It's just so I could have a chance at the new plans.
How much softcore gold do you have?
Like 20 million. I think 50
Not
million
much.
was my most ever. So as soon
You
as
got a
I
92. You got a 92 Paragon. You only got 20 million gold.
Yeah, the best find I had was that those pants for my P20 hardcore character. So yeah, I mean it's
I
just the
wonder what the
way that
correlation.
it's worked out, and since I have played all five classes from about the beginning, any kind of windfall I get usually gets reinvested right back into another class. I mean, you can always find a slot that could use an upgrade. So
I bet that's a whole thing. It'd be interesting to survey that because in hardcore, obviously, you don't reinvest every single penny, at least if you're smart, because there's a chance that every single penny is going to go away forever.
right.
Right.
Whereas in softcore, you're never going to lose it. So, I mean, the value of the item you buy will probably decline over time. But I wonder if people in softcore end up with much less gold built up at their levels than people do in hardcore, or vice
No, I
versa.
think I'm
And
just
no way to know, really.
poor.
Anyway, I brought that up because people are trading. I guess selling is I guess trading is the more operative term. You can trade softcore gold for hardcore. Usually, it's about 4 to 1. So if you had 500 million, 400 million in softcore gold, you could in theory get 100 million hardcore gold for that. And would you have left at that opportunity and or do you like bootstrapping your way up from nothing?
I wanted to do a little bit of bootstrapping just so I felt like I earned it. I mean, I kind of went through.
And then you can buy it all
Yeah, that's
after.
right. I mean, I went through
Then
the
then you can pay to win.
went through the game, kind of solo and killed Diablo and such, and so now I feel like, all right, I did that part, I accomplished that. I can get into some public games and do some more work there. Actually, the key runs I've been doing are technically public games, just nobody joins, so they end up being solo runs.
Okay, final thoughts, Xanth?
No, I'm nothing much, aside from try to avoid as many leechers as you possibly can.
Unless you
Unless
and
you are a
Oz might.
leecher.
Yeah, Oz might have a different opinion
And
on
try
that
to
one.
find some other ones. You can find a reasonably paced MP1 game.
So on your birthday, Xanth, if you could have 5 unidentified items, name them. Name your
Um,
5. Okay, even 3.
Three, I guess.
You could have 5 of the same one, I guess, if you want, but that's kind of boring.
I think a Mempo. It's always fun to find them. A Manajuma's knife, just because I'm still always looking for an upgrade, and it's nice to find a class specific weapon that you actually could use to so the potential for a big sale or an upgrade. And then I guess like a Zuni's Pox. just because it has like just a good potential to roll really well and a huge upgrade or a big sale too.
You're so witch doctor
I
centric.
know. I
What about your poor demon hunter? No love for her.
no. Well,
No calamities on your list.
sadly, no.
So if I find any of those tonight, I'll be happy to give it to you unidentified.
Oh,
If I play later, of course, I'm probably going to be playing my level 22 demon hunter, so the odds are pretty low. But see, if we had a shared Paragon system right here, I might have just scored one of those with my massive account Paragon bonus. But oh
Or
well.
if you were playing the console where you could find a calamity at level 22.
Yeah,
That
give
too.
you level 20. Yeah, give you level 22 Zunamas's pop. It's got 14 intelligence and a half a socket. It's great.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, guys, we've gone long, and it's going to be two parts. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloinkgamers.com, and our Twitter is diabloinkgamers.com. That's not right. It's Diablo Inc.
Yeah,
Gamers, right?
at Diablo Inc. Gamers.
At Diablo Inc. Gamers, and you can listen to Xanth threaten the life of his barbarian.
And,
Do you feel that all barbarians should be killed, or just yours?
well, I guess I'm gonna go all. You see them all the time in hardcore, and some of them are played really well, some of them are not, and it just makes it extra special when you see a class that's not a barbarian.
That's one reason I say it at public games. They're full of filthy barbarians. Do you pick up, when you find a yellow slayer, do you pick it up?
I do, just to, it probably will sell if it rolls really well.
But okay, there's two drawbacks to picking up rare barbarian weapons. The first is that they don't sell very well. Okay, there's three drawbacks. The second is if it rolls really good, you might be encouraged to play a barbarian and use it. And the third is if it rolls really good, you'll be enriching someone else's barbarian play experience.
But if it
So there's 3 points right there that tell you should not pick that
but
up.
if it pads my way to a billion, I'm gonna do it.
But that's pathing your way by encouraging barbarians. It's
Eh,
dirty money. It's like drug money.
um, uh, Flux, could you remind me what was the item that you were able to get a
I
billion
didn't
off
say
of?
I felt this way about barbarians at all. You're the one who said this. It was I found a pair of gloves. Any class could use them.
That's right.
That's
There was nothing specifically about any class on them. They were a green pair of gloves.
yeah.
You might just want 260 dex strength on your non-barbarian.
It's
Yeah,
armor, man.
Maybe you really like defense.
Yeah,
yeah.
armor.
That's totally probable.
Yeah. See. Okay. No worries then. Okay. Thanks for listening. Moo.
Moo, 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 moo,
Moo.
moo, moo,
Moo.
moo, moo, moo.